going to see what we came up with. Again, the question we're thinking about is how did genes, and again we're calling her Jean now, she was Jeannie as a kid, but as an adult she started to go by Jean. How did her experience at Manzanar affect her identity?
Was that her name, Jean?
She went by Jeannie as a kid. So let's just start brainstorming some of the ideas that you guys have. I'm going to point out some things if we don't point them out together as a group, but I want to see what you guys think first. So, Maurice, what's an idea that you have?
I'm not this one separate.
She became softer. Oh, like. Explain it? Well, basically what I'm trying to say is like, she became less happy because her father couldn't.
Okay, so she became less happy, less soft as an adult because of her father's abuse. Okay, that's a good one. And again, we're not even really writing full sentences here.
I just put that she became softer.
After fathers, and again, if you don't have this or you don't have something very similar to it, I'm going to have you write it on your list as well. So yeah, as she got older, she was affected by her father's abuse during their time at Manzanar, and it made her kind of less soft of a person, we should say. Macy, what do you think? Being very secluded. Okay.
Very secluded and
Desolate. Would you also say maybe another word similar to that would be like lonely?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
She knew what a bad life was like.
Yeah, so her experience in the camp kind of made her feel like she wanted to be kind of invisible, like she wanted to disappear. And so as an adult, she was more lonely. She kind of felt not connected with other people as much, definitely. Koa, you got one?
Hard and sad.
Hard and sad, okay. So we kind of got that first part up there, like less soft, but yes, maybe more sad as an adult. Again, a lot of negative experiences she had, and so maybe she found it harder to find happiness as an adult. Cameron, you got one?
She knows what a bad life is like.
She knows what a bad life looks like, okay? And so again, how do you think that impacted her identity as an adult? What does knowing what a bad life feels like and looks like, what does that do to your identity as you get older? I like the thought. Just keep thinking about that and I'll come back to you. After I saw your hand up, what do you got? Her family was torn apart. Okay, so yes, again, how does that affect her identity though, that her family was kind of torn apart?
Her not having resources to reach out to.
Not having people to reach out to. Would you guys say that that kind of goes along with the being secluded and lonely thing, not feeling connected to her family? I'll kind of include that here. I'll say not connected with family. Okay. Somebody else's hand was up. Lily, what do you got?
She was depressed.
Depressed. Okay. Yeah, we'll kind of include that. She definitely experienced times of being sad or depressed after. I'm going to give you guys a couple that we haven't really said so far. I think these are all good. I'm going to include a few more here. And by the way, where we got this information is chapter 20, which I think you guys should have read last week. It was our homework, I think on Wednesday or Thursday. But she is proud. This is a positive thing. She's proud to be Japanese American. She has a lot of pride in that. She's not ashamed to be Japanese American, even though her experience at the camp could have maybe made her feel that way because of how she was treated. But she's proud to be Japanese American. She's proud of her heritage, and she's also proud that she is an American citizen. So both of those things. other thing is that she is ashamed of her father. Again, what was her father like during their time at the camp?
Really bad.
He was abusive. He was mean. Could somebody raise their hand and tell me why her father changed from being kind of a nice fatherly figure to a really mean, abusive guy? Really? Why did that happen? Alcohol definitely played a role. But again, what led him to start drinking and being abusive like that? Darryl? Yeah, when he went to that place called Fort Lincoln, where he was being accused of basically like conspiring with the Japanese, selling them alcohol, and so they basically accused him of being a traitor. And so his experiences there, they don't get into the details as to what that experience was.
I think he doesn't think that he should even. I think that he's suicidal.
I don't know if they mentioned that specifically. At the very least, though, he engages in like self-destructive behavior, though, right? I mean, he's drinking to excess. He's abusing his family members. So clearly, something very negative happened to him at that Fort Lincoln that caused him to then be abusive. And I'm gonna amend this one, guys, because I kind of misspoke here. Prior to being at the camp, she had some pride in being Japanese American, but later in life, she actually was very much not proud to be a Japanese American. She had very mixed feelings about this. So I'm making an amendment to that one. At times, she felt very disconnected from the rest of the people in the country because of her heritage as a Japanese American. So it's kind of a mixed thing here, but she often felt very much not like she had a lot of pride in her Japanese American heritage. Ashley, you got something else to put up there?
I was gonna add to when her father went to that camp, he probably saw some very, very bad stuff.
Yeah, it's very possible, right? They kind of allude to that, but they don't tell us any specifics. But it's very possible that he saw some very difficult things while he was at that camp.
Like very scarring.
Potentially. So let me just ask you this, guys. This is a pretty good list. Would you guys say that her experiences at the camp made her a stronger, better person, or do you think it had more negative effects on her? Maybe a little bit of both, but it seems like most of the things we have up here are pretty kind of negative things, right? It had a pretty, I would say, a net negative effect on her because she became more disconnected from her family, less proud of her heritage. She felt shame towards her father, right? These are all negative things. So clearly her experiences at the internment camp negatively affected her in a lot of different ways. Okay? So, keeping this in mind, let me go back to the slides. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do today is we're going to identify what we think the central ideas of Farewell to Manzanara's concluding chapters, so the last couple of chapters. So we're going to now together, we're going to read chapter 22. Okay, so I want everyone to go to page 167. Go to page 167. We're on chapter 22.
What page?
Page 167. The chapter is called 10,000 Voices.
This is the last thing we're gonna do.
Well, we're going to read this chapter, and then we're going to try to answer the question about what are some of the central ideas of the book.
If we keep going,
We're not going to finish early. I've got plenty of stuff for you guys to do.
oh yes.
Okay,
No kidding.
you want to go to page 167, Joe, so you can follow along?
I wish you could go to Shady's grade no matter what grade you were in. Like, 6 and above, like, it's so fun to like,
Right there, Joe.
167. Come on.
Okay, so, you guys sit in a chair though, Joe. You gotta find a chair.
I want to sit on the bed.
You gotta find a chair.
I want to
You can sit in that chair. You gotta sit in the chair.
Who got to sit at the desk? That's not fair.
Everyone
Ain't
else
nobody
is.
in the world could back up her over.
Nine
Find a chair.
No, I'm not gonna.
Okay, so this chapter is called
She was like,
10,000 Voices. Just to give you guys some perspective, this is a chapter that is talking about her feelings and thoughts well after being at the camp. So, as a much older person, okay? So just keep that in mind. This is now, she's not a kid anymore as she's writing about this, she's like well into adulthood.
This one?
Yep, 10,000
like
voices.
how well, like 30?
Well,
Is she angry?
she's not ancient.
Is
No.
she as old as you?
She originally wrote this book, just so we're clear, in 1973. So in 1973, this would have been about 40 years after she was in the camp. Actually, no, 30 years. So she would have probably been in her
42.
late 30s or early 40s when she wrote this chapter. Okay, so
Do
just,
you think she's still alive?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'd have to check. She very well could be. She would be pretty old, but she very well could be alive. Okay, so let's go ahead and read it. So 10,000 Voices. As I came to understand what Manzanar had meant, it gradually filled me with shame for being a person guilty of something enormous enough to deserve that kind of treatment. In order to please my accusers, I tried for the first few years after our release to become someone acceptable. I both succeeded and failed. By the age of 17, I knew that making it, in terms I had tried to adopt, was not only unlikely, but false and empty. No more authentic for me than trying to emulate my great aunt Toyo. I needed some grounding of my own, such as Woody had found when he went to commune with her and with our ancestors in Kake. It took me another 20 years to accumulate the confidence to deal with what the equivalent experience would have to be for me. So, just a pause there. She's feeling incredible shame. Why? Why does she feel shame? Look back to like the third line of what we just read. Why does she feel shame?
Being Percy, guilty of something.
Yeah, she felt shame for essentially being guilty of doing something to deserve that kind of treatment, meaning being put in a camp. But did she do anything to deserve being put in the camp? No, she just existed, right? She hadn't done anything, neither had her family. But she feels shame for having done something to get put in that camp, even though they didn't do anything. Okay, moving on to the next page, 168. It's outside the scope of this book to recount all that happened in the interim. Suffice to say, yeah, hold on, I'm gonna pause. Maurice, you need to be following along. We're on page 168.
I don't want to follow along.
Cameron, I need to see you actually following along too, not just having a book on your head. So I want to see you following along.
I just want to follow along.
Good, Joe, that's what we're doing. So we're at the top of page 168. It's outside the scope of this book to recount all that happened in the interim. Suffice to say, I was the first member of our family to finish college and the first to marry out of my race. As my husband and I began to raise our family, and as I sought for ways to live agreeably in Anglo-American society, my memories of Manzanar for many years lived far below the surface. When we finally started talking about making a trip to visit the ruins of the camp, something would inevitably get in the way of our plans. Mainly my own doubts, my fears. I half suspected the place did not exist. So few people I met in those years had even heard of it. And those who had knew so little about it, sometimes I imagined I had made the whole thing up, dreamed it. Even among my brothers and sisters, we seldom discussed the internment. If we spoke of it at all, we joked. When I think of how that secret lived in all of our lives, I remember the way Kyo and I responded to a little incident soon after we got out of the camp. We were sitting on a bus stop bench in Long Beach when an old, embittered woman stopped and said, "Why don't all you dirty Japs go back to Japan?" She spit at us and passed on. We said nothing at the time. After she stalked off down the sidewalk, we did not look at each other. We sat there for maybe 15 minutes with downcast eyes and finally got up and walked home. We couldn't bear to mention it to anyone in the family. And over the years, we never spoke of this insult. It stayed alive in our separate memories, but it was too painful to call out into the open. So, I'm going to pause again. So, after she left Manzanar, did she like talking about her experiences, or did she keep it kind of inside?